Is it possible to transform a death sentence into a testimony of life? This video will take you through a real-life story as shocking as it is inspiring, where Neville Goddard's law of assumption is put to the test on the most critical stage imaginable. For years ago, a 28-year-old man faced a terminal heart disease, with all odds stacked against him. However, the power of a transformative belief challenged the impossible. Discover how the intense application of this law not only changed the destiny of a life on the brink of the abyss but also offers a light of hope for those seeking miracles in their own lives. Prepare to witness the extraordinary journey from a terminal state to full health. He suffered from a rare heart condition that was deteriorating his heart. Despite extensive and costly treatments, he had shown no improvement. The doctors had lost all hope of his recovery, and he had been confined to bed for a long time. His body was extremely thin, and it was very difficult for him to speak and breathe. His wife and 2 children were present when I arrived. She listened to our conversation. I explained to him that the only solution to any problem was a change in attitude. I asked him to nod if he understood me, given that speaking was complicated for him. I explained the law of consciousness to him, pointing out that consciousness is the only reality and that the only way to alter any condition was to change his current state of consciousness. I suggested that he assume the feeling of being already healed. I proposed that he imagine the expression of amazement on his doctor's face upon seeing him recovered, defying all prognosis of a terminal illness, and that he visualize the doctor examining him repeatedly, exclaiming, "It's a miracle, it's a miracle." Not only did he clearly understand what I told him, but he also believed it with all his might, committing himself to follow the procedure loyally. His wife, who had listened attentively, assured me that she too would diligently employ the law of assumption in her imagination, just like her husband. The next day, I left for New York. This happened during the winter holidays in the tropics. Months later, I received a letter informing me about the young man's miraculous recovery. When I returned, I visited him personally. He was completely healthy, actively engaged in his work, and energetically participating in social activities with friends and family. He confessed to me that since my departure, he never doubted that the law would work. He recounted how he had fully lived the assumption of being already healthy and strong. For years after his recovery, he is convinced that his successful use of the law of assumption is the only reason he is still here today. This account also demonstrates the success of the law of assumption by an executive in New York during the fall of 1950. The executive, working in one of the most prestigious banks in New York, shared with me a serious problem he was facing. Despite being middle-aged and feeling that he deserved a promotion and a salary increase, his superiors clearly informed him that there were no possibilities for promotion at that time and that if he was unsatisfied, he should seek other employment. This left him even more worried. During our conversation, he expressed to me that his goal was not to accumulate a great fortune, but to obtain a salary that would allow him to maintain his home adequately and ensure a good education for his children, which was impossible with his current salary. Faced with the refusal of his superiors to offer him a promotion in the near future, he experienced a deep dissatisfaction and the fervent desire to obtain a better position with a significantly higher salary. He confessed to me that the ideal job for him would be managing the investment funds of a large institution, such as a prominent university. When explaining the law of assumption to him, I indicated that his current situation was simply the manifestation of his self-concept and that, if he wanted to change his circumstances, he only needed to modify this elevated self-concept. To achieve this change in consciousness and, therefore, in his situation, I suggested that every night, before going to sleep, he imagine himself concluding one of his most successful days, having closed a deal to work in the type of organization he desired, in the exact position he longed for. I assured him that if he managed to fill himself completely with this feeling, he would experience immediate relief, his disgust and sadness would be left behind, and he would feel the happiness that accompanies the realization of a desire. I affirmed that, if he followed this assumption as I suggested, he would inevitably reach the desired situation. And so it was. After applying this procedure night after night since the first week of December, in early February, the director of one of the richest foundations in the world offered him a position as an executive, in charge of investments. After some adjustments, he accepted the position, now with a considerably higher salary and with the prospect of constant progress. This man is now in a much more relevant position than he had initially aspired to. The couple in the following story has attended my lectures for years and represents an inspiring example of the conscious use of the law of assumption by two people focused on the same goal simultaneously. They were a very close-knit couple, whose life was fully happy and free of frustrations. For some time, they had planned to move to a larger apartment, specifically wanting to live in a luxurious penthouse. The husband wanted a penthouse with a large window to enjoy a spectacular view, while the wife desired a wall with a floor-to-ceiling mirror. Both longed to have a fireplace, and if the apartment was located in New York, it would be ideal. For months, they searched unsuccessfully for the apartment of their dreams. The situation in the city was such that getting any type of apartment was practically impossible due to the scarcity, long waiting lists, and complicated buying processes. New apartments were reserved even before their completion, often from the blueprint. At the beginning of spring, 2 months after starting their unsuccessful search, they finally found what they were looking for, a penthouse in a newly constructed building on Fifth Avenue, facing Central Park. However, they faced an obstacle. Being a new building, it was not subject to rent control, and the annual rent significantly exceeded their budget, being many thousands of dollars more than they had anticipated. Despite continuing to explore other options during the spring, they always returned to the penthouse facing Central Park. Finally, they decided to increase their rental budget and submitted a proposal to the real estate agent to convey to the owners. It was then that, without prior coordination, both decided to apply the law of assumption. Only later did they realize the coincidence in their actions. Every night, when going to bed, they imagined themselves already living in the desired penthouse. The husband, with his eyes closed, visualized himself at the window looking out at the park, even imagining opening the window early in the morning to enjoy the view. He saw himself sitting on the balcony, enjoying the company of his wife and friends, completely immersed in the feeling of being there. During this time, without the other knowing, his wife was doing the same. Several weeks passed without a decision from the owners of the penthouse, but they continued to visualize themselves there every night. One day, to their surprise, an employee of the building where they lived informed them that the penthouse was available. This left them astonished, as their building was one of the most coveted in the city due to its location facing Central Park. They knew there was a long list of people interested in living there. The fact that the penthouse was unexpectedly available was a well-kept secret by the management until that moment. Upon learning about it, the couple immediately showed interest in renting the penthouse, despite the possibility of receiving a rejection due to the waiting list and the fact that the management had already promised the penthouse to another family. However, after several meetings with the management, the rental of the penthouse was granted to them. This penthouse, subject to rent control, had a cost in line with what they had planned to spend. The location, the penthouse itself, the balcony with a stunning view, everything exceeded their expectations. Moreover, the penthouse had a large mirror on one of the walls, from floor to ceiling, and the longed-for fireplace. With this, we conclude today's lecture, presenting 3 successful examples in the application of the law of assumption.